Hi everybody, this is Ken from Cadimage, and in this session we're going to look at how you can get creative with the Cadimage tools. Current lineup of tools are these 7, but the creative ones, as we like to put it, the ones that are a bit more fun, the ones that we can play around with the model and do some more interesting things with and take a standard building and add more to it, are these creative tools as we class them. So that is doors and windows, cabinets, coverings and stairs. I'm going to use 2 project files and drop between them to look at different aspects of each one of these tools and give you a quick example of how they actually come together to be a little bit more creative. So first one I've chosen is doors and windows, and one of the first things really to talk about is the big difference between our doors and windows and standard doors and windows. So this is just a quick snapshot of some of the doors and windows you get in the standard library, and you can see they're broken down into types, so you have to find something suitable and then choose to modify that into what you're looking for. Cadimage doors and windows are a little bit different because I should actually say Cadimage door, garage door and window. There are only 3 objects. These are left wide open so you can customize them and turn them into whatever you need them to be. If I take a quick look at this building, you can see there's a whole range of different doors in this case. There's also some windows, there's some combined doors and windows, and there's a whole load more windows and a couple of doors up on top here as well. So this is not a building, as you'll be pleased to know when we look at this next image. This is actually just a little bit of a taster. It's a test file we use for migration and various bits, but it's a test file to show that these 3 objects can actually create this pretty extensive range of weird and wacky combinations. So it's much more flexible, you can do a lot more with it. If we look at a real building, then the sort of things we can see, obviously the different types of doors, there's sliding doors, there's hinge doors, there's combined doors and windows. What I was actually going to look at was something like this here, where you can see we actually have a combination of a window which actually contains a door unit on a slanted angle with a custom trim. And what I'm going to do is drop across to the other model and take a look at how we can actually throw something together. So here is my ground floor building of this amazing blank canvas. So this is it as it stands. And what we're going to do is look at putting something in here. So we'll begin by going into the window tool in this case, because I want to do a combination door and window. And all I do is pick the Cadimage window. I'll get 2 choices. I can either sketch or parametrically design a new window. Let's start with sketch, because what you'll see with it, it's very basic. You do the very, very basic set out. So let's say this window is going to be 3.6 meters wide. It's going to have a height of, let's say, for ease, 3 meters. And we'll set the sill height to 0. And we'll set the reveal to the wall face. And we'll make it 100. Now I'm working here in the UK in millimeters, but whatever country you're working in, you can set this to your local standards. That's just an ArchiCAD setting. So whether that's feet in inches, meters, centimeters, don't really know what else there is, but you can set it to any of the local standards that ArchiCAD can take. So that's pretty much how the sketch sets out the window. You can set a few other basic things like the surfaces. At this stage, I'm not too bothered as long as I've got a nice big window. That's all I'm looking for. So really what I need to do now is go to detail design and then start to play with it. So let's start with the shape. Now the shape, we can define the top and the bottom. So we had a slope in that previous one. Let's just have a slope in this one as well. Once we pick it, we can then set various aspects of it. So I'll just have a drop of 600. If we know the angle, maybe we'll have a drop of 15 degrees. That then will recalculate the drop over here. We can also put shoulders on there if we want horizontal sections before it starts to drop. If we set both of those to 900, keep the 15 degrees, then we can work out everything else in there as we go on. In terms of dimensions, because I'm working with sort of 900 and 500 odd drops, I'm going to set 600. So just another size. That puts in a physical bar across here. But what I'll do is I'll set that to 482, which is the calculated depth for this point here. We can then set maybe 450 increments on these bottom panels, and I'll leave the last one blank. There's various options for how we set the measurement, repeating units, various other bits. All I want to do is make sure that's dimensions to the mullions and transom centres. Glazing is where we start to see the big difference between standard ArchiCAD and then our doors and windows. What you'll see is I've actually got a highlighted panel, and I can actually pick in here and select either panel. So what I want to do is take the bottom one, and we're going to divide it up. So what I'm going to do there is just say add, and that breaks into 2, add again, breaks it into 3, and add again, breaks it into 4. So what I actually want here is 4 panels, all 900 wide, and then I can start to play with the operation of each one of these. So I'll take the end one here, and currently it's a fixed panel. Let's make it a right slider. We'll take this one here, and we'll make it a left slider. We'll take this one, and we'll turn that into a double hung. So effectively it's a sash window. I'm just picking lots of different ones here just for the sake of playing around with the whole thing. And in this last one, I'm actually going to turn it into a door, but before I turn it into a door, it's a little bit tall at the moment. I'm going to insert a panel above. And what that does is break that into 2 based on my 450 increments. We'll take this one, and we'll turn it into a left hung door. That's just a blank panel at the moment. We'll come onto that in a second. This one on top we'll take, and maybe we'll turn it into louvers. And in this funny shaped panel on the very top, maybe what we'll do with that is take it and turn it into a fixed panel. So PVC infill or timber or whatever it happens to be. Loads of other controls that we can play around with, but I'm quite happy with that for now. If I go to doors, this has now appeared because I've chosen a door. We can set the door type, and you'll see door leaf has also appeared. So what I can do is come in and select something suitable. So we'll take this one. If we look at the surfaces, what we can do is say the door leaf, I'm going to leave it all as timber, but the panels, in this case, let's make blue glass. Make sure I undo. I will set the panel, the door leaf and the beading back because I wasn't paying attention there. So deliberate mistake. There's tons of other options we can play around with, but I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'm aware that time's ticking away. So right now, all I'm going to do is hit the OK button. To insert this window, all I do is standard ArchiCAD stuff. I'm going to pick on the outside face so I get my correct alignment, and then choose what way does this door open. So we'll open like so, and that's it inserted. If we're going to take a look back at the 3D, you can see how that door or window inserts into the wall. You will see there's a gap across the bottom here. That is okay. I'm actually using a little strip foundation wall underneath here, and what you're seeing is a couple of 100mm of that gap. So if I was actually to take this ground, I will just lift it to -50. That gives me a little bit more of a realistic sort of step up into the building. So if I now quickly come back in here, what I'm going to do is just set out a new window, 900 sill, and again we could choose the operation type. So I'm going to go for a tilt turn operation. I'm going to leave the rest of the settings as they are. There are actually tons of other options. If we go to sill, we can put some sort of sill on the outside face. So if I just OK that, I'm going to insert one of these in the centre of each one of these walls. We'll grab a quick door. Similar process. We grab our doors and windows tool. I don't want a garage door in this case. I just want a very simple door. It's the leaf I'm interested in. So we'll take that and go with the same blue glass, and we'll drop one in here. So now what you'll see is this rather fantastic building coming together quite nicely. So what you can see hopefully with that is that with only 3 doors and windows, you can actually do a whole range of combinations pretty quickly, and it's also quite cool the way you can pick in a window and start to play with the panels. If I was to use this example here in traditional objects in ArchiCAD, this is one particular unit at the moment that will schedule as one unit, it will be calculated as one. With traditional ArchiCAD, you're probably looking at possibly one for this here, certainly one for this, one for the door, possibly one for the header, and then I don't think there is a standard window that will do that shape, so you probably have a combination of 2 in there. So you're looking at potentially 5 objects to create that same thing that I've done quite straightforwardly with the Doors and Windows tool. So if I come back into this other model, we'll now take a look at coverings. What I've got is a typical example of where coverings really come into their own. One of the issues we've got with this model here is we've used timber siding as a surface to give the impression of boards on the wall here, but you don't get any depth to it because there's no shadows, there's no real three-dimensional properties to it at all. It's just a surface that effectively paints on the wall. Also, there's no 3D behind it, so if you put a section through, you're not going to see any of those parameters or properties or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is just show an example of an actual roof covering that's been applied to this building, and what you can see if I select it is lots and lots of different contours, because what we're actually seeing there is the covering itself. We're seeing the openings created in it, but we're also seeing all the trims, the barges, if there was ridges or valleys or gutters or any of these sort of things, these would also come into play. So I'm going to go back to the other model and put some coverings onto it. So maybe what we'll do is start with the wall coverings, and then I'll put a roof covering on as well. So let's just drop back to 2D, and what I'll do is select the walls. To apply a covering, all we do is go to the Cadimage menu, pick the coverings tool, and say wall coverings. That takes me straight into the appropriate place, and we get a little preview. It's not really going to be truly indicative until we get the thing on the building so it can adopt the correct shape, but we'll get an idea of the different elements in here. So the first thing to choose is the layout. Now what that means is how we want to break this covering up. We can just, as it is just now, have one covering across the whole building, but that's way too boring. We could do a split sill level. We could do right down to the most complicated here, which is separate wall coverings to all areas. So that's above and below openings, it's a main covering, it's above head height, and it's below sill height. That's probably getting a bit OTT, so maybe what we'll do is stick with, where is it? This one here. We'll split its sill and head heights. So that gives me 3 distinct areas to work with. Key things are the heights. So 900 is my sill. I think the head height's 2400. I will have to check that because I wasn't paying too much attention. Obviously, if it's not right, we can come back and tweak it. And the next thing really to worry about is what happens on top of the wall. So we want it to follow the shape. And similarly on the base, we wanted to follow if there was any solid element operations or cuts or trims, we wanted to follow those as well. The only thing I want to do there is drop it 50mm to take me down to ground level. If we then look at the coverings themselves, this now is split into 3 areas. There's also 2 settings in here. There's the cladding, and then there's the vertical trims we can apply with it. So we'll take the main covering first, and I think what we'll have with that is a little bit of grooved shiplap. This then has an option to set a rotation and offset, so we'll leave that as 0. The profile is just the physical size, so they're 18mm boards. They are 135. Let's make them 250. And we'll have a 225 cover, which means there's a 25mm shadow gap, so we can see what's going on there. So nice big thick boards. And the reference origin, what we'll do is set that to be ground floor. So it's always going to start at the same place no matter where we are in the building. So we'll have boards that align across different bits of geometry. If I look at the surfaces, I'm not too keen on the beige right now, so maybe what we'll do is change that to pine grained horizontal. And then what we'll do is switch to below sill level and see what we can do down here. So first things first, what do I want to have in there? So we have generic flat surfaces with bricks and blocks, weatherboards, different types of profiles there, panels, corrugated, logs for log cabins because you can never have enough of them, final weatherboards, ribbed, and then you can actually have none at all, which is quite a useful thing that I'll talk about when we look at roofs in a second. For here, I'm just going to go for bricks and blocks, and we'll have an offset of 0. We'll say brick length, we'll actually do it block sized, so we'll have 450. 100 thick, 225 high, and we'll also have a 225 stack so that we get nice coursing that goes along through the building. Again, we'll set this for ground floor. Final thing is above head height. Maybe what we'll have here is boards and battens, but what we'll do is we'll spin them 90 degrees, again with no offset. and these are on 600 centres, so that's okay. Only thing then is a quick look at the surfaces. What I'll do is go with a light grey and a dark grey. I'll just check the bricks that I've applied. Let's give them a sort of brickish colour with a black mortar. So that sets all those things out. There are further options, as I mentioned, where we can put on vertical trims. So this is what happens on corners. We have details here. We have horizontal trims that we can go into, and we can put on maybe a sill profile at, let's do sill height, because there's a change in material thickness. So we'll have a sill profile which is 120, that's okay. And we'll set this to be something that fits in nicely with the materials in the building, so probably vermilion red. But more realistically, we'll go for more dark grey just to fit in. Further options, we can put trims around openings, decide how these behave and appear, etc, etc. But let's just crack on and hit OK. When I do that, the screen zooms in and I can choose to offset this inside or outside. I'm just going to snap it to the outside of the wall. You'll see it does its little calculation and the new trim actually appears. So in terms of 2D and in terms of pure modelling, you have a couple of choices here. Some people just use this as a visual thing, so they're not too concerned about the overall thicknesses. If you wanted to do this absolutely properly, then what you should probably be looking at doing is not modelling the outer skin of the brick wall, so that when you then put the covering on, you're getting the correct thicknesses, etc. But that's far too technical. Let's just see what it looks like. So there we go, into 3D, and you can see straight away I have my wonderful block work on the bottom here. Might have to do some work on the courses and the offsets. I have my timber boards that come up, and then I'm straight into my vertical boards and battens. So very quickly I've put this together, but we'll go and look at the roof next. I think the roof is one of the areas that has the most time savings. One of the real time consuming tasks when you're modelling a roof is, rather than have something as I have here, which is just purely the overall geometry, when you want to put on your valleys, your ridges, your barges, your soffits, all these little bits and pieces, even the gutters and the downpipes, that's something that manually with standard ArchiCAD takes a considerable time to put together. I know a customer who recently bought a license and was using it on projects that are fairly similar, lots of small residential properties. And the last time I spoke to him, he reckoned he was saving a good hour to an hour and a half on fairly standard residential properties purely by the ability to put on the trims round about the roof. So never mind the roof surface itself, just all the little trimmers, because that's the bit that takes crazy amounts of time. But we'll take this standard roof here, and same process, coverings, and I want a roof covering. And I'm not going to get into all the nitty-gritty detail of it, but hopefully you'll get the idea. So first things first, what kind of cladding do we want? So you can actually have none, and there's some people who they're not interested in the cladding. It is all the trims and all the bits round about, but let's show it off. So let's have shingle. So in the UK, we would actually use this for slate tiles. So I'm going to leave the sizes as they are. If we look at surfaces, then what we can actually do is use a combination of dark grey with something similarly dark, maybe iron. And what this will do is calculate and give us an alternate. So you could actually mix a couple of colours in the surfaces that will give you very, very similar, but a bit of variation to give you that natural variation that occurs in real life. There's then a whole host of settings. Do we want to put framing on here? Well, no, we're going to turn that off because we just want it to look pretty. Somebody else can worry about building it. If we look at the edge boards, we can choose different profiles. We can set different surfaces. So these are all white at the moment, that's all good. If we look at the soffits, again all white. But in here we can choose, is it flat, is it sloping, what happens with the barges. So we can choose to maybe box those, set what our overhangs are. We can look at the flashings, tons of controls and details in here. For the barge to hit the roof, there's apron flashings, there's valley flashings, tons of things you can go into. And these are all gold and beige at the moment, which, yeah, excellent. Let's change those to something a bit brighter. Let's make them let's make them yellow. I want to actually see these things when they're placed. Very often when I'm doing real buildings, I will use daft colours like this because it will actually stand out and you can see what bits need to be edited when you look at the 3D window. But this is the bit I find the biggest time saver. So my guttering I would like to be royal blue, and we can have lots of different shapes. So let's just go for a quarter round. We can set all the sizes. I don't have time to get into all those here, but we can see we can do all these sort of things. If we go look at the downpipes, let's just change those to rectangular. I went for blue gutter, so naturally I'm going to go for red downpipe. And then the final bit is display options again for how it looks in 2D, but I just want to see what it looks like. That's the fun part here. So let's just hit OK, and hey, it's finished. You'll see the whole appearance has changed, and if we go look at 3D, you can now see we have this fantastic roof on top of this truly stunning building. You'll see my gutters are in place, I have flashings, we have a valley, we have ridges, we have all sorts of different bits and pieces in here that we can see. But you'll notice there are no red downpipes. There's no downpipes until we choose to put them in, because it's one of those things that you don't necessarily need them on every corner of a building. We are going to have one over here, and the way we put it down is we select the covering, and you'll see there's a couple of hotspots that are intelligent, like the coloured ones. The first one allows us to choose a custom angle. So if you were manually combining two different bits of buildings with coverings, then you could go and set that. But this is the one I'm after, because this creates the downpipe. Now what I do have to do with it is pull it forward to sit on the face of the covering. And there's even controls here actually. You could pick this up, move it backwards and forwards, but you can also change the angle if you need to sit it exactly on a corner or some other place like that. So one there, and we'll just put one on here for good measure. Again, we'll pull that forward and align it. And if we just look at 3D again, you can see I have cunningly made these into concealed downpipes. So I obviously haven't quite got the offsets set properly, but the other thing you'll notice, we have to just set the height. So all we do is we pick it up and we just stretch down to ground level. The same on this one. I know it's hidden. We'll go back and sort that in a second. So we just bring that down to there, drop back to 2D, bring it forward until it hits perpendicular. And you can see now it's almost there. I'm still going to have to do some more work because I obviously don't have as much overhang as I thought I had in there. But you get the idea. We can put these things together nice and quickly. So another little deliberate mistake in there just to throw into the mix. But let's go back to the other model. And what we're going to take a look at now are stairs. So first thing we do is go and look at the stair type selection app. Sorry, we don't do that at all. That is a standard stairmaker type dialog. Our Stair Tool doesn't have anything like that whatsoever. You define it pretty much freehand. You can control how it goes together, obviously, but we don't have any standard styles that you begin with, a bit like doors and windows. So what we have are three stair types, three stair constructions, a solid, a floating, and a stringer-based stair. And what that means is we have a load of things like this here, so slightly different appearance in 2D. 3D is where you actually see it. And what you can see is we have the solid, obviously with timber or some sort of surface treads on top. We have the floating with our kick plates, and then we have four different types of stringer geometry. So in solids, cut strings, we can have the treads resting on the strings, and we can have a centerpiece as well. When it comes to design, that's where we start. Whatever you want to do, you just start with a blank canvas. So I'm going to go back to this wonderful building, and maybe we'll begin by putting a stair in this space over here someplace. So what you'll see is we have the stair tool. That's what brings up the old dialog if you pick on a new stair type. What we're interested in is a poly stair. So a couple of basic things. Set the overall height. We can change that later. Set the width. We can set various other properties like these open treads, open risers, closed risers. Set some of the sizes. We can look at surfaces. The only thing I'll do just now maybe is turn off, you can see there's a head clearance. We will turn that off. And what we'll do is go back to the 2D preview, and we'll choose this option here because I want to align this stair with the right hand edge. So when it comes to placing it, I'm going to say I want to start about here. And the first thing you'll see appear is this stair placement pet palette. This gives us various options for the type of shape we're producing. So we have a straight edge, we have curves with 2 points, 3 points, tangents, etc. Standard sort of ArchiCAD geometry methods. And then we have this option here. Are we building a flight or are we building a landing? So I want to do a flight and I'm going to bring it up to here, but what I'm going to do is come back 950mm short of the corner, because what I want to have is a winder that goes around here. So we're going to come into this corner, we're going to come down 950, and that gives me a nice symmetrical wind, and then we're going to go and close off somewhere down here. So it then calculates. A couple of issues. We need to set the treads beyond so you can actually see them, and we can move this up and down. But what you'll see is it's created straight flight and then 3 nice symmetrical kites, and then onto the last piece up onto the floor above. If we want to look at some other shapes, let's just do some freehand stuff. We'll do a couple of little tweaks on the break line, and then we'll just start to draw. So literally start, going for a center alignment this time. We'll pull this out wherever we need it to be. We can then switch to a landing, return the landing, go back to another flight. We can have another piece of landing coming off like so, and then back to a final flight to return to the floor above. So we can create this sort of shape and then obviously do all these sort of things to pull this up and down. So that puts in the shape. Alternatively, if you want, if we just draw another piece, we could start and then we could go into curves and off we go. When we're drawing, if I just draw a straight section and just randomly draw some stuff, if we make a mistake, backspace key takes us back to wherever the previous point was. We can do a return on here, carry this on, and basic rules like click again at the last point and that closes off that shape. But let's just go back and concentrate on this one here. Once I've got the shape down, it's not fixed as that. What we can do is go into what's called graphic editing mode, and we can actually start to do things like maybe say, well, let's just extend that a bit further. And in fact, let's give it a curve inwards. We'll take this piece and we'll curve that in the opposite direction. Maybe what I'll then do is take this corner and we'll just extend this outwards. And we'll take that one and we'll extend that outwards. So we're completely changing the shape, playing around with the whole thing. If I want to maybe bring this in, tighten up some of these spaces, so we can close off the size of the landing. There's tons of things we can actually do with it. The other option in there is to go in there and start to modify the shape of the treads. So we could actually do something like that and create something really difficult to walk up and down. Or if I want to just have something nice on the first point, we'll just zoom in and we can put little curves on the end of these treads. So it's something that hopefully you can see is not your standard out of the box stair. It's something that you can freehand design and turn into whatever you need it to actually be. So the last thing to take a look at is cabinets. And here I have an example of some cabinets that I made earlier. This is a particularly bad example, but it's the usual sort of thing with these webinars. I'm trying to throw everything into the one space so you can see what's going on in here. So there's all sorts of combinations of drawer units, curved cabinets, concave, convex. We have sliding doors, traditional opening doors. If we go around the other side, we have some solid end panels just to close off the shape. And if we go back around here, again, more types of doors depending on what it is we actually require. But as before, what I'll do is come in here and maybe we'll look at putting some cabinets in this little tiny kitchen area. In fact, let's put them down in this space here. So cabinet tool is a standalone tool. We double click to get into the settings, and a bit like the previous ones, we have various options for object types. So we have the cabinet, this includes the carcass. We have the cabinet, which is just actually the face itself, and this is really useful for quick models. For visualization purposes, what you can do is throw down dirty big thick slab or wall or something that represents where the carcass of the cabinets is going to be, put a worktop on it with a slab, and then we can use this to quickly put on doors to show where the cabinets would actually be. There's then end panels, so you can just close off the little awkward gaps with maybe some shelves or just a closed panel or just a fixed panel on the end just to tidy up the appearance of the thing. The last one's a pelmet, just again for closing off and tidying up the underside of wall-mounted cabinets. But we'll go with the standard cabinet, and again, there's loads of different things to go through. I'm going to kind of skip through quickly. We'll set this for a 3D view because we want it to look nice. We can choose, do we want a cabinet front, which effectively uses this. We want a rectangular cabinet, we can have corner cabinets, whatever we need in there. We then set the module size, so it's a 1200 by 600. Here in the UK, those are fairly standard sizes. That's in Imperial, probably roughly 2 foot by 2 foot by height of 3 foot. But that's a standard size. And we can either set a module width or we can set a physical number. So if we said it was 1200 and we wanted 6 of them, it would rebuild and it would divvy that up. So we have whatever 12 divided by 6 is, 200mm doors. Well, let's just stick with 2. And then what we can do is look at the set out. So there's no drawers in here yet. Let's just add a couple of spaces for them. And right now they're blank. What we'll do is we'll say we'll have a drawer on there. And then we've got other options. We could have fixed panels, we could have top hung doors. So let's just have fixed panel. We can play with the surfaces. I'm going to leave those as standard because time is running a bit short. If we look at the doors and drawers, in here we can choose things like the panel style. So there's all sorts of different panels. The current sort of trend here anyway is to have just a simple beveled panel. If there was infills, we could set the various sizes and angles. Again, we can set the materials. The drawer panels, we'll set those to be the same beveled. If we move on to handles, we can choose different types. Let's have a full length handle. It's 150, let's make it 250. Pull it only 30mm out. We'll make it 8mm just for the sake of changing. You can also position on the doors and the drawers. The doors, what we will do is take that down a little bit. And again, we can set the surfaces. So I'm going to set that one for ivory black, just because I've been changing things. The counter then has a lot of options. We can set the benchtop properties, so the sizes, the offsets, the overhangs. If there's a rail underneath, we can set the surfaces. If we look at nosings, we could choose maybe chamfered nosing on the front of this, set the sizes. Let's just change the nosing to be red, because it might be dangerous, you might bump into it, I don't know. Upstand, I'm going to make, where did it go? Stainless steel, because what I'm actually going to do with the upstand is go back into the parameters for it, and it's currently 100mm. Let's make it 600 above, so this maybe is a splashback for maybe an industrial kitchen or a lab or something like that. Because it's stainless steel, it's unlikely to be 20mm thick. It's probably only going to be about 4 or 5mm thick, and it's probably not going to be radiused, so it's just going to be fitted on the back of here. We then have options how we apply this. So what I'll do is I'm going to leave this one as the back edge only, and it's going to merge side to side if there's any others in here. We can do offsets in the edges, I'm not too worried about that. We have display options, but let's just hit OK. And what we'll do is we'll take this and drop it into this particular corner. I'll then put in another and another. And what I can do is pick up the first one, and the upstand will make back and left. And we'll pull it back 100mm from the edge. And then we'll take the last one, we'll make it back and right. And again, we'll pull that back. So if we take a look, this is what I've created, this bank of components. And obviously there's a whole load of other things you can start to play around with in there, but hopefully that gives you a bit of a taster of how you can throw something together. If you put sinks, cookers, etc., you can use solid element operations to chop out your spaces for wherever those are going to fit. Now that was a quick run through some of the ways you can get creative in ArchiCAD with Cadimage tools. If you already have the tools and you've got a premium subscription, don't forget you can go to mycadimage.com and download the free objects and tips. And if you want to subscribe, remember that you get 2 months free if you pay for 1 year in advance. All you have to do is go to mycadimage.com/buy. Thanks for taking the time to watch.